Shaw Brothers movies have a history of telling strong, well thought out stories that contain fun casts of characters, along with violent conflicts taking place between the heroes and the villains. However, there are some films in their catalog where the line between the good guys and bad guys isn't as clearly drawn, and House of Traps is definitely a case where you can be left wondering whether one side was more right than the other. So, without further ado, let's break this classic down. House of Traps is a 1982 kung fu film directed by Chang Che, and its cast features all the main Venoms outside of Lo Meng. This movie was based on a 19th century book called The Seven Heroes and Five Gallants. This film, however, gets its name from the main plot device, which is a literal house full of mechanized traps that was designed by the main antagonist, Prince Zhao, as part of his revenge plot against his first cousin, who is the current emperor. The story starts off with an explanation about how the royal family's conflict began. Zhao Guangyin, the former emperor and the prince's grandfather, was a good and honorable ruler, but he was killed by his own brother so that he could have the throne all to himself. After that, Guangyin's son and the current prince's father killed himself after his uncle became the emperor, leaving his young son, Prince Zhao, distraught at his father's suicide and filled with hatred toward what his granduncle's actions had led to. Even though Guangyin's brother later gave up the title of emperor to his son, he himself still held all the power. Knowing this, Prince Zhao eventually gathered members from across the country to join him in his plan to launch a rebellion against the emperor, and when he was older, he had the House of Traps built to secure treasures that his men stole from the empire, as well as a list of all of the members who have decided to join him. After all of this gets established, the movie proceeds to show a constant back and forth of plotting, fighting, sneaking, and double-crossing between the prince's assassins, the emperor's spies, and the group led by Magistrate Yan Chunmin, the emperor's protege who was sent to investigate the prince's actions and arrest him if necessary. House of Traps takes a lot of twists and turns in the plot, and with the movie being just over an hour and a half long, there's a whole list of pros and cons that I can say this movie has. So let's talk about it. The pros. For one, the movie does an excellent job setting up the players on both sides in terms of which faction they belong to. Almost all of the core cast plays distinct roles that the audience can appreciate after the story reveals who is fighting for the prince's rebels and who is fighting for the emperor. Another pro that this movie has is the excellent fight choreography. I mean, it's a Shaw Brothers film with 4 out of the 5 Venoms, so naturally, they didn't miss in the action department. The movie is also carried by the charisma of actors like Chin Su-ho, Chiang Sheng, Ricky Cheng Tian-chi, and Philip Kwok, as you can tell that all of them were having fun with the parts they played. Lastly, the House of Traps itself was expertly crafted and utilized. Watchers of this movie can tell that the filmmakers put in a lot of effort into designing the layout of this place, especially given how important its story involvement is and the various kinds of traps that it surprises viewers with, so the movie title is well deserved. The cons. Despite the explanation given at the beginning about the royal family, I think a little more time could have been spent detailing the family tree and how the title of emperor was passed down. As much as I liked this movie, after his cousin was mentioned in the dub, I felt that it didn't do the best job explaining the prince's relation to him or his granduncle, since I ended up having to review the intro multiple times just to figure out who was who and who did what. The cast is large, and while I'm usually fine with that, this complicated the process of keeping track of everyone's names. Sun Qian's contribution to the movie is handicapped due to who he is playing. While I get that he was playing an inspector who needed to be protected by other fighters, I thought to myself that it was a shame that his role couldn't be tweaked to have him use his signature kicking skills. Whether it was intentional or not, more time was spent on making us like the Magistrate's crew, so I felt the movie wasn't exactly great at making us like or sympathize with the prince's group, especially since it was his grandfather and father who got done dirty because of the emperor's actions. Finally, the ending of the movie is a wild one that I thought left a lot unresolved, or at the very least, resolved in a way that wasn't too satisfying. Overall, despite the number of cons exceeding the number of pros I gave, I really enjoyed this movie. The action, story, characters, and plot devices were all on point, and while this movie has some slow build-up to the fight scenes, I can respect that when the build-up to those moments contains decent dialogue, good humor, and intrigue in terms of what people will end up doing next. So, with that in mind, I would give House of Traps 8 kicks. What did you all think of this movie? Is House of Traps one you'd be willing to step into? Or would you rather pass on this for other martial arts films? Whatever your thoughts are, comment below to let us know. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more reviews. This is DK from Lone Wolf and Cub, signing off.